Whew. Hey, y'all. That was quite a debate. Let's go ahead and pin this. We're going to go ahead and get into that. I don't know if y'all watched the debate. That was something else. The second and final presidential debate. We're less than 2 weeks out from the... let me go ahead and get that together. Hey, y'all. I'm seeing people come in. But yeah, we're less than 2 weeks out from the 2020 presidential election. And that was something. My name is Taryn Finley. I'm Black Voices editor, HuffPost Black Voices editor and culture reporter. And I'm really excited to be here to talk to you all today for a very important conversation about this election with some of the brightest collegiate scholars that we have at from 4 different HBCUs. A little bit about me before we get into it. I'm a Howard alum, 2014 graduate, and also your moderator for today's live. I'm really excited to get into it. But first off, just to give you a little context, we just watched, once again, the second and final presidential debate with Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And boy, was it something. We heard Trump and Biden speak on issues like COVID-19, healthcare, race in America. They blatantly called out the talk that Black and brown families have with their kids, and also prepaid taxes, which was interesting. I'm really excited to talk to you all about all things debate, all things election. Just so you know that we have 4 different scholars coming on. Their views and opinions do not reflect those of their schools or their organizations. We want to make sure that we engage you. So definitely feel free to go ahead and let us know if you have any questions, comments, concerns, all of that. We'll be reading through all of those and engaging. But first and foremost, we want to make sure that everyone is registered and is going to vote. Everyone who is able to vote can vote on November 3rd. So we're going to go ahead and get into our first panelist. Let's see, is Ja'Cory in here? We're going to wait a second for our first panelist to come in. But while we wait for our first panelist, I see we have one panelist in here. Hey, Xavier. I want to know what you all thought about the debate. Did you watch? Do you usually, or have these debates been helpful? I know this one was a bit more civilized than the first presidential debate. I think it also was moderated in a way that felt a bit, in my opinion, it was the best moderator that we've had during these debates so far. And I think that definitely helped to kind of keep things orderly and keep and kept the candidates from stepping on each other's foot. Let's see, is Ja'Cory in here? Okay, Ja'Cory isn't in here yet, so we're gonna go ahead and do things a little bit out of order, if that's cool with y'all, because we want to make sure that everybody is able to come in and have a seat and get things started. So bear with me, y'all. So go ahead and Xavier, if you can go ahead and request the live, that'd be great. This debate was better. I agree. Mio, I agree. Trying to wave at all my peoples. Everybody in here from the HBCU or HBCU adjacent? Let's see. Okay, Xavier, whenever you're ready. More civilized, but I heard a lot of untruth. So did I. And I'm really excited to see what the fact checkers have to say about this. debate. Hey, Spellman, what's going on? What's going on? I have a lot of friends in Spellman. Hey, Xavier.
Hey, there we go.
How you doing today?
I'm good. How about y'all?
I'm all right. Just watched that. What stood out to you in this debate?
I mean, there were a couple of things for me. I think that for me, just kind of Joe's Biden. I think Joe Biden's kind of relatability was one of the things that stuck out to me. Hold on, I'm trying to get this camera together. I think that that's one of the things that he's kind of hit home on the past couple of weeks, and he kind of talked about his leadership ability to kind of bring everybody together. And his kind of upbringing was something that you kind of saw kind of show out in this debate for me, at least. I think you saw Donald Trump kind of mention a couple of things that not everybody talks about on a day-to-day basis, or some issues that aren't super important to them on these large scale, and a lot of these what's the conspiracies, kind of weird things that I mean, everyday people don't really care about that. We want to talk about some of the things that's affecting us, that's going to help our kids grow up in safe communities, help us kind of have access to advanced education, adequate health care, those type of issues, instead of kind of these weird one-off conspiracy theories that even credible journalists won't pick up and talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. A lot of misinformation, a lot of disinformation. We saw that happen in 2016. We see that that's happening right now in 2020. And I want to back up a little bit. And because I didn't give you a proper introduction, ladies and gentlemen, Xavier McClinton is a fourth year economics student and current student body president at FAMU. Hey, Rattler. And he's also a member of the Collegiate 100 of FAMU chapter of College Democrats, and a member of Alpha Phi Alpha. So a man who wears many hats, is involved in so many things, and we're really grateful to have you here to talk about this issue. Now, in this debate, one thing that I think was really interesting was the amount of time that they actually spent talking about race. Whether or not, they did it in an adequate way was another thing. But I'm wondering if you had to give each candidate a grade for how they addressed, the issues around systemic racism in America and Black Lives Matter, what would that be and why?
I would give Joe Biden, I'll probably give him about a B plus, somewhere in that area. And I say that because I think he missed some of the key points of some of the issues that we talk about that we face on a day-to-day basis. But I think he at least understood some of those things and tried to bring that up in the conversation. I would give President Trump about a C, because pretty much all he said the entire time is, "I've done more for Black folks than any other president since Lincoln." And I mean, for you to try to compare what you've done in 4 years to the freedom of slaves, that's not accurate. I mean, you think about presidents who signed the Civil Rights Act, the voter registration act. I mean, there's all these different things that have come into that process of helping Black folks and kind of moving forward. And then some of the, non-official policies that have set us back, I would say years. So I mean, some of what he talked about just kind of frustrates you as an African American student and a young person, to go back and not even legitimize the Black Lives Matter movement and what that means for African Americans in the U.S. And what the work that they're doing specifically means for us. And so just to try to ignore that completely and move past it, I think was a disgrace. To not acknowledge some of the systematic racism that we have in the United States and not even talk about that was another issue of mine. So I would give him about a C minus.
Yeah, and that was a soundbite that we've been hearing, especially recently within the last few months. I'm wondering, you're 22, 21. How old are you?
Just turned 21 in August.
Okay, happy belated. And you've already voted, correct?
Yep, I have.
Okay, I'm wondering what your conversations have been like with your peers, friends, classmates. Gen Z, y'all are such a dominant generation, and I'm wondering how engaged are folks? Are your classmates and friends watching debates? Are they mostly getting their information about the debates afterwards on TikTok and Instagram? Like what's going on?
I think it's a combination of both. You have one crowd that's super engaged, super energized. That's the Gen Z that you see kind of out there and in the front lines that led a lot of the Black Lives Matter movement and protests and kind of conversations this summer. So I think that crowd is super engaged. They watch the debates regularly on a normal basis. I mean, I think the other half, you kind of see that they're kind of turned off by the politics that we have in the U.S. right now. And so they're like, you know what, my vote doesn't matter. I don't really care about the stuff that's going on. And those are the ones that you really have to try to break down and explain how these things kind of impact them. And kind of talk about the policies behind different things and how what that looks like on a day-to-day basis, whether that's healthcare, whether that's access to education and some of, I guess, worker compensation and minimum wage and different things. Just kind of break things down on their level to kind of get them to understand that it's more than just the person that's running for office, per se.
Yeah, definitely. I know before we spoke yesterday before this live, you were talking about the issues more so than the candidate, you know, across the board. When you go into the polls, so I'm wondering how can you kind of reiterate what you were telling me about how essentially that has kept your energy up when it comes to going into this election and staying engaged?
Yeah, I think, like I said earlier, I think I have a lot of conversations with people who don't like President Trump and don't like Vice President and Biden as individuals or politicians. But what I always tell them to do is to look at what the platform that they're running off of, look at what the issues that they talk about, what they really stand on certain things, and make your decision based off of that. Even if you don't agree 100% with what they're saying or what they kind of did in the past, I think that you have a platform that each and every one of them that everybody runs off of, and that have a lot of different ideas and opinions on a lot of different things. And so once you kind of look down into what are women reproductive rights and where they stand on those things, where they stand on some systematic racism and ways to address and improve that in the future. You look at where they stand on those. When you look at economic opportunity and the ability to kind of advance yourself as a minority, I mean, or just a young person in general, you take a look at those issues. When you look at healthcare, take a look at those issues where they stand. So break it down, look at it on the issue basis instead of the person or how well they speak or how great of an orator they are. Because I think that for some folks, that's a big turnoff, specifically for Joe Biden is what I'm talking about here. Some people don't like the way he's not an energizing person. I mean, you look back at President Obama when he ran back in 2008, people like to just hear him speak, and they still do. People like just the way he spoke about things and the jokes that he would make and just kind of his character and charisma that he had just really energized and had a lot of effect to people. But when I tell people about Joe Biden and saying, oh no, I don't feel anything from him. I'm like, okay, you're right. A lot of folks don't do that, but you have to take a look at the policies that he stands on, where he is as an individual, and as an elected official, and then make a judgment from there if you're not in love with the person that it was.
One good analogy I heard, kind of piggybacking off of that, is that you're not necessarily voting for this person to come into your living room or off likability, but more so you're voting for who you trust to fight for you. So that sounds similar to what you're saying. Yeah. I really appreciate you. Also, you already voted, correct? You did early voting.
Yeah, early voting. Started
Okay.
Order, so.
Okay. All right. I know that's right. Xavier, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. No problem. All right. We're going to go ahead and go to our next panelist. Jacory, I believe, is still in the room. Jacory is a junior honors biology pre-med major at Jackson State University. He's also the Student Association president and a member of A5A as well. So let's go ahead and bring Jacory up in here. There we go. Jacory, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thanks for joining us. So
No
talk to
problem.
me. You watched the debate. What were your thoughts?
Wow. I have quite a few thoughts. I can't even lie.
What
As
was
I
the
was,
main thing that stood out to you? Is a
the
better
main
question.
thing, I just feel like it felt like almost like a comedy show. I say it all the time. It's more of a reality show where you kind of get laughs and you form opinions more than you actually focus on what's actually going on and what policies are they standing for. It's hard to actually get that out of the debate without you doing your actual research on it, which is hard for us today in times, because all we do is drive off social media, and we think and we look there and let that form our opinion instead of doing our own research. So it kind of hurts us in a sense, but I feel like it plays to the public eye and to where our country is headed to right now. So it's kind of like cat and mouse, and they kind of understand how to get our attention, and that's the best way to do it right now, to actually have people to feel as if it's okay to watch the debate and give them something to look for.
Yeah. I want to ask you a similar question to what I asked Xavier. What are your conversations like with your friends, with your classmates, your peers, all of that, around how you all get information and what the things that are most important to you when it comes to staying energized in this election?
So right now the most thing, basically just we keep people energized by understanding that when we vote now, this will affect us not just for next year, but the next 8 years. We can't look and say as if, hey, I'm a college student now and vote in those eyes. We have to think about the perspectives from we're going to be grown. We're going to be in the actual world. What are we going to do? How is it actually going to affect us? So we have to be very analytical about these topics and not be so at the forefront of it, thinking about what's going on right now. I feel like that's where a lot of times we're stuck at. We feel like we need to see the change now. If we don't see the change now, then the president is not actually doing their job. You have to give anything a few years, even like with healthcare, as they mentioned. When they have Obamacare, it's still in the works and it's still being talked about to this day. But yet, President Obama isn't the president anymore. It's been a whole nother term served and about to be another one, but yet it's still a hot topic. So you have to get things certain time periods because you just really never know.
Yeah, you really don't. Do you think these debates are helpful? Do you think, this one was more or less effective than the first one?
Um, I would have to say no. Only because like I said like earlier, I feel like it's reality. It's like a reality show. They want us. The real reason they want us to watch it is not the real reason why we need to watch it, because they know how simple-minded a lot of us actually are, and that's a quick way to gain our attention, and for to get viewers up and say, hey, well, people watch the election. I mean, they watch the debate, so they know what they're going out to vote for. When in actuality, you really getting substance out of watching the debate. All you got was, hey, two guys are arguing and they're going back, they're trying to pull each other cards, talking about personal issues instead of talking about the United States issues.
Yeah. What issues do you think should have been addressed that are important to you that weren't on this debate stage tonight?
So I feel like they kind of touched on it. So I'm a biology pre-med major. So they kind of touched on it, but they really didn't go too far. Besides, Biden said changing Obamacare to Biden care. But I feel like they talked about healthcare, but they didn't dive into it how they should have, especially with the pandemic going on. A lot of times they're quick to say, well, hey, I can bring up healthcare or I can give free healthcare, but we all know that no healthcare is actually equal. You can say, hey, we give me your Medicare, Medicaid, or whatever insurance you're offering, but a lot of times these things are frowned upon, and you're not even getting 100% quality care from it because of the fact of the type of insurance that you have. We see it all the time. Of course, someone who has more money than me has better insurance, is going to get better services. They're going to be open to better equipment, better technology because what they have. So I feel like we need to find a way to equalize everything to where it's all to one standard, to where we don't have people feeling this ill. Well, I'm not gonna go to the hospital anyway because I know that either I can't afford it or my insurance is not gonna do enough for me. You don't
Yeah.
want people feeling like that because then you defeat the purpose. It's almost like a Ponzi scheme. You know that they're gonna want to get this insurance. And you tell them this and that, and it sounds good, but in reality, it's hurting you. Honestly, you might as well
Yeah.
not have any insurance at all. You're back into the same spot.
Yeah. There a lot of change needs to happen. I definitely understand that. Gonna ask you the same question. Have you voted already? What are your plans to vote?
So yes, I haven't voted yet. I'm voting on November the 3rd on the actual day. So I do plan to vote. This is gonna be my second time. I turned 18 like right before election. So my birthday is October 27th. So I like turned 18 right before the deadline. So I got to vote in the last term. But it didn't actually, it didn't make me feel like my voice wasn't heard. If anything, it made me want to dive deeper into the political field, understand how things are actually working, and how can I actually not just make my voice be heard, but make my other peers be heard, and how to actually drive them to the polls. Because that's the biggest thing. You don't want to necessarily focus on yourself. You want to focus on your environment, community around you, and push them and uplift them, and not just tell them, "Hey, come go vote." But no, let's actually sit down. Let's discuss this. Let's understand. What I'm saying, why are you voting? Why are you voting for this person? Don't go vote just because mama and daddy said, "Hey, I'm for the Democrat or I'm a Republican." So you're gonna do what mama and daddy say. No, do what's best for you. Understand, each person's views so you can break it down. So you won't look back in 4 years and be like, dang, I shouldn't have voted for them, or I shouldn't have voted at all. It happens a lot when we actually don't do our research and understand why we're actually choosing that person.
Jacory Daniels, my cousin from Copiah County, Mississippi. Thank you so much. Well said.
No problem.
All right, appreciate it. Take care.
You too.
All right, so let's go ahead and bring on our next panelist, Rachel Howell. I think I saw Rachel in the house. There she goes. While we wait for her to join, I'll go ahead and give her a proper. Oh, there she is.
Hello.
Hey, Rachel.
How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm really excited to, talk about the debate and like diving into the conversation.
Girl, dive in is what we're going to do. Folks, Rachel Howell, she is my fellow Howard sister. Hello, Howard Bison. She's a senior at HU, the real HU, where she studies political science and philosophy. She's also the president of HUSA, the Howard University Student Association, and is very passionate about voting rights, higher education, and policy. So I'm really excited to dive into some things with you. Rachel, we know that Black women are consistently showing up and showing out at the polls. We are, consistently behind that, as well as, any political social justice movement that like really moves the needle. With that, what do you think, or let me back up, what stood out to you in this debate? What was the biggest piece that you took away?
Honestly, if I'm talking about what stood out to me the most, I would have to say the moderator. Knowing that Black women are always making history, knowing that this was the first Black woman to moderate a presidential debate since 1992, I think that's what stood out the most to me. I think the decorum and the poise and just being able to just navigate a situation that in the past, or an interaction in the past that has been very hostile. I think that just speaks to how Black women are always showing out. We're always keeping the peace. We're always making sure that our issues are represented. Because even with the topics that were discussed, things and issues that pertain to Black women, including pregnancy, including reproductive like health rights, that wasn't discussed, even though we vote.
Overwhelmingly. Exactly.
Overwhelmingly.
Exactly. Kristen Welker it was the moderator from NBC. My fellow coworker, she is phenomenal. And I do think that, hands down, she was the best moderator. She was able to handle, the interruptions, the kind of unhingedness at times. And you could tell it went by definitely more smoothly. I'm wondering, do you think that your friend groups are enthusiastic about voting this year?
Yes, I think my friend group, my peers, just Howard students in general are really excited to get out to vote. I would say that for a lot of us, this is the first time that we've been able to vote in a presidential election. Last election, I was not old enough to vote, and like voting is near and dear to my heart, especially since I'm a first generation American on my mother's side. So helping her study and prepare for her citizenship exam, you know, really just inspired me like to get involved like with politics. And even when I wasn't able to vote because I wasn't old enough, I was still a poll clerk. So I still had the opportunity to, you know, assist people in Fulton County, Georgia, even though I wasn't able to exercise my right that, like, you know, all of our ancestors have fought for us. And even though we are still fighting for that right today due to voter suppression.
Yeah, and we've seen voter suppression is so real even in this election. You know, you have ballot drop-off boxes, you know, mysteriously on fire, you know, delayed absentee ballots, long lines. So it's really important. Have you already voted?
I have not. So I'm from Georgia, but I live in I live in North Carolina now, but I'm in like the DC area because of school. And so I requested to have my absentee ballot in North Carolina because there are some important elections going on. So I'm still waiting on that. But if I don't receive that soon, I'm flying home because 2 years ago, when I was able to vote, I didn't receive my absentee ballot and so I flew home and I voted. And there was a lot that happened that day with me getting lost. I ended up going to a wrong polling precinct because the transportation app that I used took me to the one outside of the county. Lyft, Uber, everything didn't work where I was because I was literally in the middle of nowhere. I walked a mile to find it. Like, it's a crazy story. I walked a mile to go to a church, and I got in the car with this random lady. Thank God everything worked out. And she took me closer to where the polling precinct was, and then my neighbor picked me up, and then after that I was able to vote, and then I stayed home for 30 minutes, and then I flew back home. So it's so I'm very passionate about voting, especially because, you know, so many people do not have this right, especially when it comes to like not fellow, but former incarcerated people. And we just know that our justice system does not include us and just does not like protect us all the time. And so we just really have to make sure that we vote in this election and just all elections, period. Because when you see everyone that's running for Senate, when you see how many Black people are on the ballot, that should motivate you, you know, because
really
and like since we're talking about, like, you know, the debate, and like President Trump said, you know, you inspired me like to run because you're not doing the right thing. I think the same like a concept applies to just the resilience of Black people. You know, we see that, okay, things are crazy in South Carolina, things are crazy in Georgia, everywhere, you know, on a local level. And yet, like, as a whole, we're continuing to, you know, run for these positions because I like this election, because I also work with the Collective PAC, and this election, I'm incredibly excited to know that, you know, as young people, we are voting, but at the same time, like, as Black people, we get to vote for people who, you know, want to build Black political power, right? So we have a shot at equity.
Yeah, that people are, you know, really uplifting you and like giving you kudos and your praise for that, because that determination is really important and real. And, you know, be clear, you know, that what you faced was voter suppression. And a lot of people, you know, because we are in 2020, because we are in a new millennium, they don't even think that it happens to them, but that happened to you. So kudos to you for, you know, going above and beyond to make sure that you made your voice heard. I wanted to ask you, because I know that HBCUs was an important topic that you wanted to talk about tonight, and it came up in the debate. If you were to give each candidate a grade on their commitment to preserving and advancing HBCUs, be it what they said on the stage tonight or what they have in their platforms, what would it be and why?
Okay, so I would say that yes, when it comes to President Trump and when it comes to what he's done for HBCUs, you know, things have been okay, right? But when it comes to policy and when it comes to the preservation of HBCUs, when I look at the platform of the Biden Harris campaign, like I'm impressed, right? So I would say that with all of that, I would give President Trump a C, because at the end of the day, when it comes to other institutions, when it comes to predominantly white institutions, when it comes to Ivy Leagues, some of these schools' endowments are crazy. Like, I know that with NYU at their medical school, because their endowment is so large, they don't charge their medical students. So it's like, if we had that opportunity at HBCUs, given, you know, the wealth gap between Black people, you know, I think that that would just be like incredible. So with that being said, like from a long-term perspective, and not just for, you know, this one fiscal year, I would say that I would give Biden and Harris, I would give them a B plus, and I would give Trump a D, because at the end of the day, even though there's progress, it's not good enough.
Yeah, it's like you can't give us crumbs and call it a cake.
No.
Definitely
Just so you
understand
can
that.
use that as a soundbite. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Rachel, thank you so much. This has been so amazing. I really appreciate you. We're going to go ahead and get our final panelists on. Keep doing the work, girl. Keep doing the work.
Thank you.
Because, listen, we need people like you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Take care. All right. Cameron, if you in here, let me know. But yeah, y'all, the kids are all right. And I say kids, like, but they're grown. But, you know, they're all right. We have had 3 phenomenal young people on here to really give us context and walk us through their experiences. And I think that's really important, because a lot of times Gen Z's voice ends up getting muffled or getting erased. A lot of times. I don't see Cameron on here yet, but I'm going to go ahead and do some housekeeping and let y'all know how to vote. If you haven't voted already, make sure first and foremost you check your status. If you don't know if you're registered to vote, make sure that you do. Oh, Cameron, I see you. Make sure that you go out and vote, okay? And make sure you're there early, because it's still COVID. Make sure you're safe. Make sure you bring your mask. Make sure you are, you know, adhering to whatever social distancing rules, or the 6 feet or greater. Make sure you're doing that. Cameron, how you doing?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. I love this tie. I love everything.
I had to do
You said I'm going to be suited and booted
just
11-12 after the debate.
Just
And that is what HBCU energy looks like.
Yes,
I love it. Let me give you a proper introduction, Cameron. Cameron Nolan is a senior economics major at Morehouse College, and he's the SGA president and a content creator who has shot videos and that have gotten him tons of attention, including from people in high places like Allstate. I might need you to do some camera work for me someday, Cameron. I'm really excited to have you on here. You know, we had a really good conversation yesterday, and I think I'm really interested in hearing what stood out to you most during this debate.
Well, there's really like 3 things. I'll put it like this. 1, Trump made some very strong comments about the Black Lives Matter movement, what I thought was very interesting, because at no point did he say that he would side with the movement. He just kind of put them in a position of, yeah, when they were doing all of this, they were talking about pigs and all of it. It was just like very hateful in his tone. Other thing that I noticed was Joe Biden's comments about the oil industry. Like, that was major, right? That means changing centuries of industry that exists. So that was definitely a major point that came up. And then just lastly, when Joe Biden also talked about those mandatory minimums, that goes a long way for really the sake of Black men, because that's really where my emphasis comes in, be it that we are like statistically thrown in the prison system. So that would be a major win for our community, most definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I'm wondering what your thoughts were on we spent a lot of time talking about race, talking about Black Lives Matter on stage tonight. And I'm wondering what your thoughts were about both of the candidates' responses to Kristen's questions about the talk and about Black Lives Matter.
Right. So, as politicians will do, they will say political answers. And with that, they're trying to be more broad to not offend anyone. So, if you remember, like Trump and his whole campaign put a lot of emphasis on telling the boys just to, just stand by, that type of conversation, never incriminating them, but making them feel as though they can have a space in which, hey, now is not the time. Biden was more so intentional in saying, these are real conversations that are currently going on. And as a Black man, especially at Morehouse, when my whole institution looks exactly like me, a large bit of the focus is on, okay, what is your political stance on people that look like me? You want to come to the HBCUs, you want to involve yourselves in our circle. Okay, walk the walk and talk the talk. And I think that Joe Biden did a great job of like mentioning that. So yeah, that's really how I feel about that.
Yeah. What topics didn't you hear that you wanted to hear tonight on the debate stage?
Well, this whole debate, they went over time in certain areas and a lot of back and forth. My favorite word is legacy, and I truly believe that legacy is leaving every space better than you found it. One of the big things that we have as a responsibility is protecting this earth. So they briefly touched on the environmental policies, but I would love to see much more of a deep dive because, truth be told, the way in which we consume energy is not sustainable long term. So there has to be a level in which we examine and say, these are the next processes that we need to really deep dive into to ensure that my grandchildren and my great grandchildren can see polar bears, can have the experience of clean, renewable energy. So that's really where I would put a large emphasis on.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think that not just in the debates, but also just in the campaign, in their campaigns in general, do you think that they did an adequate job at reaching out to Gen Z?
I think that this generation is already, because we're so immediate with media attention, that we're already, cognizant about the election. I believe that they're looking on the space of, all right, if they vote, they're going to vote. If they're not, they're not. I believe that the onus is really on our own generation to seek knowledge. Corey made a great point earlier about not relying on your parents' platforms and knowing what it is, but doing your own research. And I completely agree. I believe that as our responsibility is to say, these are our options as far as Canada goes. These are their platform points. Move forward into a space that's most feasible with your lifestyle. But to answer your question directly, they could do a little bit more emphasis because, truth be told, the older politicians, right, they don't expect us to vote. The majority of people that run this nation are 70 plus, and that's not a shade against, the age gap, but it's more so knowing that they have a completely different target audience than us. So I really believe that our responsibility in spaces like this, being on Squad Up, is a great thing because other HBCU presidents are going to see this, or other HBCUs are going to be like, all right, we have a call to action. We must vote. So
Yeah, definitely. Related to the election, but not necessarily tonight's debate, I'm wondering, how much do you think celebrities influence, like Kanye West, 50 Cent, Ice Cube, they've thrown their hat in, commentary or like in several ways
right.
This election cycle? How much influence does that have on you and your peers and your friend group?
I will say influence is necessary across the board, right? So the level of celebrity endorsements is vital for the sake of the candidates. However, I will say that social media can often be a trap, and the way in which we perceive information can also be misleading. So I really believe that those that follow certain celebrities, take a step back and make your own rational decision about what exactly are you signing up for. I believe that my peer group in particular, we do a wonderful job of like seeking information, right? You're not about to just tell me something and expect me just to believe you. You need evidence. You have to have backing. So I believe that spreading the word and getting awareness is great. And I believe that a lot of celebrities have done a wonderful job of using their platforms to speak up, i.e. LeBron James, phenomenal. best basketball player in the world, and that's a completely different conversation. But his political voice and platform is necessary, and I think a lot of other athletes, influencers, just have to stand up on their platform and let their voice be heard.
Yeah, I love it. Well said. Thank you so much. Oh, question.
Yes,
Have you
ma'am.
voted? Are
I
you
will
voting?
vote November 3rd, Mississippi voter, so I will be voting as soon as that day comes.
There it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you
I
so much
really
for having me.
appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a great one.
All right. Take care, Cameron.
All right.
Y'all, like I said, the kids are all right. This young generation, Gen Z, they have it. You know, they understand the weight, and it is up to us. It is up to our leaders to make sure that they're doing their diligence to make sure that Gen Z and generations that come after them, that we have a country left to make sure that they can pick up the torch and lead. But, you know, they're already great leaders. Once again, the views expressed by students tonight are not the views of their universities or sororities and fraternities, or other organizations. And again, vote, 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 vote early, vote absentee, mail in, vote in person. Whatever you do, however you do it, make sure that if you are able to vote, that you get out there and vote. Okay, y'all. That's it for me. Take care.